Hello everyone, I am Amita and in this video I am going to talk about how the population can be used as a resource for increasing the productive power of the economy. First of all, the purpose of this chapter is to explain the population as an asset to the economy rather than a liability. As our country India has a large population, we need to look upon the positive and negative aspects of large population. Skills, abilities and productive knowledge, together termed as human capital, comes under positive aspect of large population. This human capital is superior to other resources like land and capital. Why? Because humans can make use of land and capital, but the land and capital cannot be used on their own. The negative aspect of large population is providing the entire population with proper food, education and health facilities. Over the decades in India, large population is considered as a liability rather than an asset. In actual terms, large population need not be a burden to the economy. It can be turned into a productive asset by investing in this human capital. Countries like Japan are very well developed even though they didn't have any natural resources. The reason is they invested in this human capital. The technology and efficiency evolved by the people using the other natural resources made these countries rich. So, by investing in skills, abilities and productive knowledge, that is human capital, leads to educated, better trained and healthier population, which in turn leads to higher productivity. Higher productivity gives higher incomes. And all these finally add to the growth of country's economy. Now, next let us see what are the factors that make population an asset to the economy. Starting with education. There are few things we have to consider when we talk about education. First one is gross enrollment ratio. It determines the number of students enrolled in school at different grades like primary, secondary and higher education. Government of India releases this data every year. As per recently released National Education Policy 2020, it aims for gross enrollment ratio in higher education to increase this from 26.3% to 50% by the year 2035. So, if this gross enrollment ratio increases, then literacy rate also increases. So now what is literacy rate? Literacy rate is defined by the percentage of population who can read and write from a particular age group. Ages 15 and above are considered as adult literacy rate. Ages 65 and above correspond to elderly literacy rate. Ages 15 to 24 correspond to youth literacy rate. Coming to the statistics, the overall literacy rate of India is 77.7%, whereas in rural areas the literacy rate is 73.5%. In urban areas the literacy rate is 87.7%. Male literacy rate is 84.7%, whereas female literacy rate is 70.3%. Next, how much money is spent on education by the government? 99,300 crores has been allocated on education sector in the recently released Union Budget 2020 and 3,000 crore has been allocated to skill development. In 1951 to 52, the expenditure on education as a percentage of GDP is just 0.64%. But now in 2020, the expenditure on education as percentage of GDP rises to 4.6%. Next, expansion of schools. The more the expansion of schools, the less is the quality of education and the higher are the dropout rates. Finally, what are the measures taken by the government for providing quality education? First one is Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. This program is introduced through Article 21A with 86th Amendment, making free and compulsory education a fundamental right to children between ages 6 to 14. This program aims for universalization of elementary education. Next is midday meal scheme. This is implemented to raise the nutritional status and attendance of students and by making provisions with special emphasis on girls. And finally, occasional streams are developed for improving the practical skills and knowledge of high school students to suit for a particular profession or a field. So with the help of all these, we can say that providing better and quality education to population enhances the country's richness, national income and efficiency of governance. The next factor is health. Do you think any firm would employ the people who are of ill health? No, right? Why? Because he or she cannot contribute to overall growth of the organization. There are few things you have to know when we talk about health. First one is infant mortality rate. It is the number of deaths per 1,000 live births of children under 1 year of age. Infant mortality rate in 1971 is 129, which decreased to 1/4, that is 32 in the year 2020. Next thing is life expectancy. It is the average years a person in a population is expected to live. The current life expectancy of India is 69.7%. Next is birth rate. Birth rate is the number of babies born per 1,000 people during a particular period of time. The current birth rate is 17.592. Next is death rate. It is the number of people per 1,000 who die during a particular period of time. The current death rate is 7.309. So with the help of all these, infant mortality rate, life expectancy, birth rate and death rate, we can analyze the future progress of the country. So by providing or by improving access to better health care and by focusing on underprivileged sector of the population results in better and healthier population. Next is unemployment. Who all are called as unemployed? The people who are willing to do the work at ongoing wages but cannot find the job are called as unemployed. Generally, the workforce population include the persons from 15 years to 59 years. So the people below the age of 15 or above the age of 59 or the people who do domestic chores are not considered as unemployed. The nature of unemployment varies in rural areas and urban areas. In rural areas, there is seasonal and disguised unemployment, whereas in urban areas, there is educated unemployment. So starting with seasonal employment, it happens when a person cannot find a job in some months of a year. Generally, the people dependent on agriculture face this kind of problem. Next is disguised unemployment. In disguised unemployment, the people appear to be employed, but finally they do not contribute to the productivity and neither poverty is reduced. Let us consider an example. If there is a small farm, that farm requires the work of 5 laborers, but actually 8 people are working on that. So even though if you remove these 3 people, the productivity on that farm is not reduced. So these 3 people comes under disguised unemployment, as that particular farm requires only the work of 5 people. So the surplus labor in every household migrates from the village to other places in search of job. Next is educated unemployment. In urban areas, many youth with matriculation, graduation and post-graduation degrees cannot find a job. This is educated unemployment. So now what are the consequences of unemployment? Certain jobs require qualified people with technical skills, but because of unemployment, they do underskilled jobs rather than technical job of their standards. So because of this, there is surplus of labor in normal jobs and shortage of manpower technical and qualified manpower in technical jobs. The dependence of the unemployed on working population decreases the quality of life, results in decline in health status, and rises the withdrawals from the school system. Increased unemployment is also an indicator of depressed economy. Why? Because if the people cannot be used as a resource to the economy, they appear as liability rather than an asset. Next, the work the people do is classified into three sectors: agriculture, farming, animal husbandry, forestry, mining, quarrying, fishing, poultry, all comes under primary sector. Manufacturing comes under secondary sector. What comes under tertiary sector? Communications, services, education, banking, travel, transport, tourism, health, insurance, biotechnology, information technology, all comes under tertiary sector. Next, economic activities are classified into two types: market activities and non-market activities. What are market activities? Market activities include production of goods or services which are used for generating profit. But in non-market activities, these include production of goods or services for self-consumption. So this is about people as a resource, and I'll conclude this session with a short story relating to the concepts discussed earlier. There are two boys in a village, Vimal and Vishal. Now first consider the case of Vimal. His parents made him to go to school, so he started studying and finished his higher education and got an admission in agricultural college. He became an agro engineer and developed a plough which increases the yield of wheat. So now the village farmers have excess production more to what they consume. So now they sell this extra production, that is surplus production, to nearby villages. So in this case, investment in human capital contributed to the prosperity of the society. Now consider the second case, the story of Vishal. His father expired and his mother earns only 150 rupees per day by selling fish. And also Vishal is a patient of arthritis. So because of this family and health status, Vishal lost interest in studies. As his mother fell sick, he is made to sell fish in the market and is earning the same income as his mother for their living. So in the second case, you can clearly see how lack of education and health gives negative results. Thank you all for watching my video.